Take 5. Okay, so what you're going to see next is the video on part 3 of our series, which is about removing combination fences which are part barbed wire and part plain wire, and they've also got droppers. Now, if you're going to go out and start removing one of these fences, we strongly recommend that you watch part 1 of our series first, because that covers a general overview and has a lot of safety issues covered in the video. And safety is of prime importance when you're pulling out a fence. So anyway, I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. All right. Okay, so we've now come to a new bit of wire that's tensioned, and so it's quite tight, and we've got to, this is how we start off cutting a tensioned wire. So don't just cut tensioned wire, it'll flick back into your face and do you damage, even if it's only lightly tensioned. So what's going to happen is I'm going to hold on to this and Ian's going to cut. That's number 1. Number 2, I'm holding. Number 3, number 4, number 5. Okay, so that's that cut, and I've got all. If you can just hold on to those, then I'll turn that off. Okay, so this fence here has got 5 strands of plain wire at the bottom, and it's got 2 strands of barbed wire, and it's on star pickets where the plain wire has actually been attached to the star pickets rather than going through the holes in it, and it's got droppers. So it's got the whole lot. So what have we done? Well, first of all, we've disconnected the plain wire only from the droppers along the length that we're going to cut out. Now the reason for that is we're leaving rolling the barbed wire till last. If we cut this off first, it would fall down into the plain wires. Sorry, we've just had a truck going past. If we cut this barbed wire off first, it would fall down into the plain wires and is more likely to get tangled. So we found by taking out the bottom plain wires first, or if you're working with all barbed wire, by taking out the bottom ones first, then when you get to the top ones, they're not falling onto the ones below. You'll understand it better when you actually start taking out barbed wire. So we've disconnected the droppers, we've cut the connections away from the star pickets, we've cut the fence, and now I'm going to roll it. Now I've tried showing rolling before, and it always looks really awkward, and it actually isn't. And I realise the reason is that when I do it, I actually do a little twist, and I try to avoid doing that when I'm filming, but this time I'm going to show you how I do it with the twist. So I've got hold of these. Now I'm left-handed, you'll have to do it your own way. I'm holding with my left hand, so you would hold with your right hand. With my other hand, I run my hand along, keeping all the wires under control. I pull towards me, so I'm getting a bit more, and then I actually turn like that and pick up against my knee, and then tip it up. Then I would normally have my back to you like this to do what I'm doing, but I'm going to turn around so that you can see it. Normally I wouldn't be turned around like this, so I'd have my back to you. So, put my foot on all of the wires so they can't escape. Just keeps them under control better. I've got hold of all this. With just one wire, not with all of them, you'll be fighting with it forever. One wire. Push it back on it yourself, that makes it easy to bend, and then twist it. You don't have to twist it so that it's sort of really close and on top of one another. It's more like a long wrap than a tight twist. Doing a tight twist like that is just hard to work. You only need like a longish sort of roll it sort of like that. So there you go, got it all in. Now then, normally I would do it with my back like that. So now I'm going to roll it like this. Okay? Now, when I started, I don't know why, but I started rolling like this, and this is very time consuming. You've not got control over what's happening here. It's much easier if you turn it this way, and then you can actually run your hands like this all the way along. Okay, and before you know it, you've got all these 5 wires, and I've done this with up to 7. All 5 wires, all rolled up, nicely rolled up, and then you get to the end, foot on it again, just make sure you've got all the wires underneath, don't have half the wires out the back, or when you step back you could trip over them. All of the wires underneath, grab one of them, wind it round like that. Now, don't try and do too long a length. Number one, it's not so bad when this is quite a new fence. On older fences there'll be joins, there'll be repairs, there'll be all sorts in it which will have knots. And the bigger the length you try and do, the harder the work is. You've got more dragging through bushes and everything. And you know, it's short and sweet. That's the best way to do it. And there you go, you've got a roll of wire. Now
Okay, when we trialled our little video of this section on some guinea pigs guinea pig volunteers, not real guinea pigs, who had never pulled fences before, one of the things that was unclear was about cutting the wire under tension, because of the way we'd filmed it, you couldn't see that we were cutting it right up against a post because Ian was standing in front of the post. So when you're starting a fence under tension, generally, you'll be starting at the start of a fence. So what I mean by that is it'll either be starting at a gate, or it'll be where the fence is on a corner and you're starting anew. Anyway, it'll be some starting point of a fence, and that's where it'll be under tension when you begin. So the reason I hold on to the wires when we're cutting them is because that keeps control of them, they don't go flying off. And we cut right up against the post, so there's no chance of anything going flying in the other direction. So anyway, I hope that makes that a little bit clearer. Sorry it wasn't so clear in the first place. Okay, thank you.
okay, we're going to talk about droppers. So droppers are these pieces of metal here that sit between fence posts to keep the wires apart and even. This type of dropper is quite typical. It can be used on all barbed wire or all plain wire, or as in this case, this has got 5 strands of plain wire and 2 strands of barb at the top. Ian and I loved these droppers, and that's actually a joke because we don't like them at all. They're a real nuisance to get off, and it depends, I think, on who put them on. I don't quite know what the process is of putting them on, but basically they're a piece of metal and they have this pin that goes in from the back and then is folded over here to hold this wire in place. Basically what you've got to do is get this pin off. Now you can do it while the fence is upright like this before you cut the wire and take the tension off it. Just experiment. If you come across these, try which is the easiest way for you to get these off, and then stick with it. And to be honest, we've taken the fence down, or some we've found out that they're easy to take off when the fence is down because you can just twist the wire and they pop out. This isn't going to happen with these because they're folded over too much, and others it's best if you leave them upright. With this particular one we've been leaving them upright. So how do you get them off? Again, the choice is yours. You can use these little clippers like this. Sorry, I'll just unlock them. And you can actually, if you're lucky and they're right, you can clip the top of this little folded bit of wire off at the top like that and cut it. Or you can get one of these and you can force this out with a screwdriver and twist it out. If that fails, you can try a pair of pliers and you grab it and you twist it off, and I've done it like that. So you go down and twist the next one off. So clearly that's the best way to get this particular one off. So there's a few options for you. We have come across fences like this where in fact this is the other way around, so it's facing a whole pile of bush. Trying to undo them is just impossible, and all we've done is we've just cut the fence on either side. Speed is of the essence. You can fiddle around till the cows come home trying to get these things off. If it's easier just to cut either side, then do that. What you won't be able to do, or rather should I say, I won't say won't because there'll be an exception to it. What you're unlikely to be able to do is actually pull the wire through this. So if you cut the wire there, well, you certainly won't be able to pull barbed wire through because the barbs are in the wire. But with this plain wire, I can't move that. It's really fixed onto this post. That's the purpose of it. So anyway, so that's this type of dropper. There are many other types of droppers, but these are the ones that we're showing you, A, because they're here, and B, because they're actually the trickiest to get off. Okay, on to the next section. Okay, we're going to talk about rolling barbed wire, and I think this is the bit that frightens most people. They think, oh my god, I could never roll barbed wire. And I won't bore you with how we started with barbed wire, but we were not very good at it until somebody showed us how to do it, and honestly it's really quite easy. This particular fence, this is the one we were looking at earlier, and it had 5 rows of plain wire underneath, which we've removed. When we were removing the plain wire, we left the droppers in the barbed wire to keep the barbed wire taut. We've now removed the droppers out of the barbed wire, so between here and the next star picket where we're going to work, there's no droppers, there's nothing in the way, we've just got 2 lots of barbed wire. This particular barbed wire is what I would say is the youngest or the most recent sort of barbed wire we ever see. It's not a heavy gauge in that it's not very thick, it's the thinnest barbed wire I've ever seen, but it tends to hold its memory. That is, when we cut this, I know from experience because we've done some of this barb on this fence, when we cut this, it will want to go back into its original roll of wire. Now, depending on the fence, and this is something you have to work out and assess when you're doing it, some barbed wire, when you cut it, it just sits there all limp and relaxed. It's forgotten what it used to be. It's been so long stretched, it just wants to stay stretched. That's the easiest to work with. This is the most difficult. But there's nothing to stop you from rolling 2 strands of this. Now, I have rolled up to 6 strands of this sort of barbed wire when it's been in a relaxed state. So it's not been wanting to roll up, it's just lay there, and it acts very obediently. You can cut the wire, you can tug the length of fence you've got. It all claps together, it all sticks together because it's barbed wire, and you just roll it up. But you need to assess that first. Okay, I'm sorry the last bit of film that we did ended abruptly, but we'd actually run out of room on our card that's in the camera, our memory card. So you can tell we're a couple of amateurs rather than professionals. But anyway, what we're going to show you now is how we cut the barbed wire. So Ian's going to come round and he's going to cut it, and then he'll go back behind the camera again. So here he is. Hello, Ian.
My 15 seconds of fame.
So I'm going to hold on to this tight because it will be under pressure. Ian's going to cut.
Ready?
Yep. And then I hold the second one and cut.
Ready?
Yep. Right. Okay, there we go. Now I've got 2 bits of wire. Don't be afraid to hold on to the wire. You've got leather gloves on. This is why you need leather. You can actually grip the barb I'm gripping that quite tight, and it's not going to do me any harm whatsoever. So what I've got to do now is I've got to start a roll. So I've got hold of these. Now Ian might move the camera because this might get a bit dodgy because we're going to move it closer. Or maybe I'll stay where it is. So I'm going to do the same thing as you do with the plain wire. Turn and make it into a roll. Now, with this bit of barbed wire, I'm not going to make it more than about that big. That's about as big as it needs to be. any bigger and it'll get unwieldy. Unlike the plain wire, which is better if you actually wind it large, barbed wire generally, for some reason, I don't know why, seems to like to be a bit smaller. You can go a bit bigger than that, but I wouldn't go too big. And I wouldn't try to go too big a length, because what happens is the barbed wire, it gets bulky in your hands and it's too much to hold. So, get hold of one of the lengths and the same as with plain wire, wrap it round. Okay? It will grip onto itself. Sometimes this high tensile stuff doesn't like to wrap around, but you just do as best you can. And then what you do is the same as with the plain wire. You just hand over hand. Now, can you still see me there, Ian, clearly enough? Alright, so I'm just going to start walking forward with this, and I'm just hand over hand with it. Don't grip it tightly, just hold it lightly in your hands and just holding it together. Okay, that's probably about as far as I can go with you being able to hear it, so we'll stop there. Okay, so what's happened here is I've got to a bush and I've just had to pull it out. Now, we've been a bit sneaky actually, because we've chosen a length of wire that's going to be quite easy to pull out. You'll be going through bushes and everything. Now, the best thing to do is when you're working with barbed wire, the person who's doing the cutting helps to get the barbed wire out of shrubs and everything along the way. Often it's helpful if you lift it out and you put it onto a clear bit of land. If you're fortunate to have a bit of track or something, you can do that. If you get a really big bush, just cut it on the other side and just pull it through if you can. If it's a really big bush and you can't get in to get the wire out, chop either side as best you can and leave it in there. It's not often that happens, but it does occasionally. So I'm just going to carry on along here, winding this, going all the way along. And so we'll finish here and then we'll meet you at the other end. Okay? Okay, so I've wound this. What I forgot to mention when I was winding is don't let the barbed wire get too slack ahead of you. Keep some tension on it. It's easier to wind if there's a bit of tension on it. It'll sort of stick together. Okay, so I've got this far. This is the point at which we're going to cut it. So Ian's going to come in and cut. So Ian's coming back into camera. Ian, thank you, Darren.
I'm here.
And he's going to cut it.
Okay.
So you stay away from it. One.
Watch your head.
Yep.
Ready?
Yep. One.
Ready?
Yep. Right. Now then, you can see why you need to have spectacles on, and it also shows you why you need to be close to this as you can before it's cut, because often that barbed wire will whip. If you're back here doing it, it'll whip and it'll wind up, and then you've got a big mess at the other end of your nicely wound wire. So get right close before you cut, and the person who's cutting doesn't cut until the person who's rolling the wire says that it's okay to cut, or at least they ask. But don't just bounce up and cut the wire and the other person who's holding it isn't ready for it. Okay, so that's wound up. I get a piece, the longest, and I just wrap this around. You can hold it with your foot if you want to. Bend down, hold it with your foot, might be easier. And just bend this around. This stuff does not like going around a roll. Just do your best. And there you go. One roll of 2-strand barbed wire rolled up. Good on you.
So you've just watched this video and you've seen us take out wire between 2 star pickets. So how do you get a rhythm going? So in this particular fence, we started by taking out all of the plain wire. So we started at one end. Ian cut to start because it was on tension. I wound it. Ian cut the next star picket, and then that's where we left the wire. And then you just pick up the wires from where they've been dropped from being cut and start again down to the next star picket. And then we went back after we'd finished taking out all the plain wire And then we did the same process, going from star picket to star picket, taking out the barbed wire. Now in this particular case, there's absolutely nothing to stop you from taking out the plain wire first and then taking out the barbed wire between each set of star pickets. That's your choice, we just happen to do it that way. Anyway, I hope that helps you to understand how to get a bit of a rhythm happening with taking out the fence. Thank you.